Hi, welcome to tape 3. In this tape, we're going to continue with the left hand, study the left hand, and continue some of the ideas that we introduced on tape 2. I'd like to spend a few minutes and just refresh your memory about some of the things we talked about. Again, remember that it's very important to sit correctly, relax shoulders, relaxed arms, and remember to place the fingers behind the frets, on the tips, knuckles parallel to the neck, and the thumb placed in the middle of the neck. Not to do this. Watch out for the left arm swinging out or pulling in. So keep all of those things in mind as we go on. I'll, again, be bringing them up as we go along because we're still going to be concentrating on the left hand. Also, remember to keep up your right hand technique practice, the arpeggios that we introduced in tape 2. And remember also to practice both free stroke and rest stroke. I'd like to say just a few words about the whole idea of rest stroke and free stroke, because you might be thinking, well, when do I use rest stroke? When should I use free stroke? Exactly what is the purpose in the whole thing? Well, free stroke is used always when you're playing a chord. If you have 4 notes simultaneously, you can't do it, rest stroke. It has to be free stroke. Same if you're doing any arpeggio studies. That's all done free stroke. You'll find, in fact, that a lot of your playing is primarily free stroke. Rest stroke you might use for scale practice or something like that, which we really haven't talked about too much yet, but just to give you an idea of why or when you would use rest stroke. For instance, if you had a scale of some sort, a few notes, something like that, you might do it rest stroke. Rest stroke tends to be a bit more secure for those type of exercises. Your right hand tends to feel a bit more secure. And it also tends to have a thicker tone. If you want to play something very loud, for instance, you would use rest stroke. Also, if you wanted to bring out a melody at the top of an arpeggio, the highest note, you might use rest stroke on the upper note and free stroke on the others. For instance, if I played a piece like this, you see, by using rest stroke on the top, it was a bit louder and thicker, so it brought out the melody a bit more. So that's just to give you a rough idea. If you're listening to any classical guitar recordings of John Williams or Andrew Segovia, if you listen, you'll probably be able to hear certain times you're using rest stroke, certain times free stroke. And it's good now to get an idea, to listen to other guitarists, and to hear when they use it and when they don't. Because pretty soon, you'll be playing solo pieces on your own, and you'll have to think about those things of, should I use rest stroke here? Should I use free stroke? And it's good now to develop your ear to hear that, and also to develop your musical ideas, your concepts, so you sort of decide, well, I like rest stroke at this point, or free stroke here. Because a lot of it is primarily personal interpretation. There's no hard and fast rules that say, this is rest stroke, this is free stroke. It tends to be a bit of a personal decision. So again, as you're going through this tape, work very slowly. Make sure you've mastered all the studies before you go on. And again, you may want to even refer back to the earlier tapes if you've forgotten something or you find you need to practice certain techniques. Let's begin by tuning our guitars and making sure that we're both in tune together. I'll go through and play each note individually, and you can compare your tuning to mine. First of all, first string, open, E note. Second string, open, B. Third string, open, G. Fourth string, open, D. fifth string, A. And sixth string, E. We'll begin by learning two new notes on the fourth string, the D string open. So fourth string open, D. Then on the second fret, we have E note, which we'll play with our second finger, and then F, which is on your third fret, third finger. We've now introduced three E notes. We have our open E, low string, then our new note on the second fret, which is also called E, and our first string open, which is E. This is what's called an octave. This first E is one octave higher than the low E, and this E is an octave higher than this E, or two octaves higher than the first E. What it means in physical terms is that those pitches are twice the frequency, so that if this is 1, this is 2, this would be 4, that they just keep doubling. And as they double, the vibrations are in the same ratio, but twice as quick. So that's why they have the same name. Let's look at study number 1. It's quite straightforward, simply introducing the three new notes, or two new notes, in the open D. And we'll play it all with our thumb. It's in 3/4. 1, 2, 3. Play that for you once more. Again, work on it very slowly. Pay attention to your left hand fingering. Make sure your hand is relaxed, placing the fingers just behind the fret. 1, 2, 3. Now, study number 2, we introduce another chromatic sign. In the previous tape, we had a sharp. And if you remember, that increased the value, or the pitch of a note, 1 fret. So F then became F sharp, so first fret to second fret. We played it here. Now, this one's a bit trickier. We have in the third bar, a B flat. Now you might wonder, well, first of all, what a flat means is that the note is lowered 1 step. So rather than raising it, we lower it 1 fret. Now you might think, well, if B is open, how do we go a fret lower than that? And actually we can't. We can't go lower than an open string. But what we can do is play that B in a different place and lower that 1 fret. So now that's one of the reasons why I introduced the B, the alternative position of the B on the last tape, which you remember was the 4th fret on the 3rd string. Now, that note we can lower. So B flat then would be 3rd fret, which you could play with your 3rd finger. B and B flat. The other thing in this particular study is what you could call a guide finger. As you play through, you'll notice that your 4th finger, which is playing the D note, remains on the neck. You don't have to lift it up each time. So for the entire piece, except for the second to last measure, you can keep your fourth finger on the fret without having to move it. So let's play study number 2 now. The bottom part is played with the thumb as indicated, and the upper part played with the I finger. So we're just alternating P-I, P-I all the way through. So the right hand, quite simple. And remember to keep your fourth finger down. It doesn't have to move. And we have this constant D note. It's, in a sense, a two-part piece. Not quite, but to a certain extent. So I finger playing the D, and then a bass line played by the thumb. One, two, three, four. Okay, let's do that study once more. Again, note that it's in eighth notes, so that we're playing 2 notes to each beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you're playing these studies, remember to keep your hands relaxed. Watch out for fingers that aren't being used, jumping up. Keep them relaxed, close to the frets.